Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Gruenke, founder of the Balanced Runner System, and I am going to change my mic settings. Oh, no, they're good. Every once in a while, my mic setting gets too high and it totally blasts and whatever. Anyway, I'm here to tell you about how to run slowly well. And I've been helping runners from beginner to Olympian, improve their form and performance since 2003. I'm the founder of the Balanced Runner System. And I'm here with another stuck-at-home running form tip to help you use this time to become a better runner. And so slow running, it's going to be a distracting morning around here because my son's online learning, he's got his school music class right now, and they play the violin, so there'll be a musical accompaniment that you'll be able to hear off from the other room probably. So we've been talking about how do you change your form to run slowly and still feel great and not feel like you fall apart. And today I want to talk about the difference between gazelles and gliders and how you can become a glider in order to run more slowly, and pretty much everything that I talked about in all the tips prior to talking about running slowly is about how to become a gazelle. So let's just figure out how to reverse engineer that process without making bad running, right? So maybe you've heard this distinction or this way of describing running form, that some runners are like gazelles and some runners have more of a glider kind of gait. So what does gazelle running form look like? There's more of a forward lean and there's more of a back kick. So the swing foot after leaving the ground tends to come up higher, and maybe even, if you're Ken Anisabakele, you kick your butt every time. But it will come up higher, and you have more of this kind of action with your leg. And then, implied is this incredibly smooth and graceful running style. And everybody wants to be a gazelle, and that is completely understandable and completely on target kind of wish. But gazelle running style really doesn't work for running slowly, especially if you're trying to run very slowly. If you're trying to do MAF training, or just even if you're trying to take a true recovery run, that may mean just you need to run more slowly than a gazelle body action will allow, because the action itself, especially if you're trying to do it with a slower stride rate, there's more vertical oscillation. You're handling more force with each step, and it's going to raise your heart rate. And even when you think about the goals for a recovery run, it's also you're trying to run and for running at different paces. This is really a test of my concentration to tune all of that out. My living room to yours, guys. When you think about the goals of the purpose of running at different paces, and specifically having recovery runs, it's to facilitate recovery by having all the circulation that helps clean out waste and bring nutrition to your tissue so your body can rebuild without replicating the identical stresses of what broke you down from your harder workout yesterday. And so running differently meets that goal much better than having the same form but just trying to do it slowly. So again, I've described the gazelle gait mechanics, and the glider is there's less of a lean, and you have more of a perception that the legs are moving evenly front and back rather than mostly being behind you in sort of to change my animal metaphor, as a road runner kind of style. And in fact, there's also the gazelle gait. So what makes the gazelle gait look like it does? Well, as straightforward, there's more of a lean. And lean is one of your major ways of setting speed. So you lean more when you're running faster, you lean less when you're running slowly. We're not talking about sprinting here, but anything from the mile up. And that, for reasons that I explained, 5 or so videos ago, increases your stride length and lets you push more. So you have a deeper lean, and then you have longer stride length, And then you have this larger back kick, which is mostly a product of the other things and the fact that you're going faster, because a back kick is not something that you do on purpose. You shouldn't be trying to lift your foot up like that, but that your foot, when it's on the ground, is still relative to the earth. To think straight, you have to pretend there's no such thing as a treadmill. So we're just talking about running on solid ground. There's only one thing that's ever still in running, and it's the foot that's on the ground. And your body moves across it, and then it has to accelerate from being completely still to moving faster than your body so that it can get in front of you to catch you. And so the faster you're running, and also the heavier your foot is, so this has to do with your body type, but also has to do with the weight of your footwear. The more drag there is, the more your knee ends up getting passively bent, so that you're swinging a shorter pendulum, so that you can accelerate that leg and that foot forward. So that is what produces that high back kick. But none of these things are going to be happening if you're running slowly. They're going to be happening so much less that they're going to play out differently. So for a glider gait, you're not leaning forward as much. You'll always have some degree of forward lean, as I've explained, but instead of being like what? Like this maybe for faster running, it's going to be maybe a little more like this. So my head is still in front of my pelvis. So that by itself shortens your stride length, but then also you're not going to be, everything's going to be a little softer. So you're not going to be taking off from the ground with quite so much force, because you didn't land with quite so much force because your stride rate was lower. So that also, it's a feedback. So that also shortens your stride length. And so you're going to feel like your legs operate more here. I'm going to just take this down a little more and back up a little more. So you're going to feel like your leg, and you're going to look like your leg is let me be accurate here, is operating more here than here, right? Now, I know I was going to kick that bookcase eventually. So, and that actually is the large difference there is just in your lower leg. It's not in your thigh. So in both cases, for the gazelle gait and for the glider gait, your thigh moves about as much forward and back of your hip joint. But with the gazelle gait, that movement is larger, and you have this bigger back kick. And so if you look at the foot, you see that it's making this. I'm going to try not to kick the bookcase now. It's making this movement, kind of. And with a glider gait, it's making a movement that looks more like this. Oops, sorry, there we go, more like that. So it looks like more of an oval and more parallel to the ground, or like just a little tilted, as opposed to this gait, sorry, that direction, for the gazelle. But in fact, it's just, the difference is just that your smaller stride length, so the overall arc that your thigh is going through is smaller. And then your foot doesn't need to, and lower leg don't need to accelerate as much because you're not moving as fast, so they don't end up getting thrown as high into the air. And then you're also leaning less, so that means that there would be more stretch involved on the front of your leg in order to get that foot up high in the air, so that's another reason why it doesn't go as high. So that's a glider gait. And in terms of the force that you're producing, a gazelle gait is much more like leaping. And I used to actually play around with this when I was a dancer, first trying to learn how to run. I see your questions. Thank you so much for your questions. I love questions, and I am going to come back and answer them like usual at the end. So as a dancer, I used to do something called stag leaps. I haven't tried doing this in this living room, in frame, but there's a grand jeté, right, where you leap like that. And a stag leap is where you lead with a bent knee instead. So, much more like that, right? So I used to do that in the middle of a run on a treadmill in the gym. It makes a very loud sound when you land, and everybody goes. It's just part of my learning process. But that, in a certain way, that's your, that I want to do it on the other leg now, just to feel even because I'm a dancer. That's your gazelle gait. It's a forward lean. You're leading with the knee, like we talked about how to run fast. You've got this diagonal, this counter rotation, right? So, and you're getting that air time, you're getting that stride length, and then you're landing, and there's a lot of force to deal with because you've come down in mid-stance. But that's not the mechanics for a glider gait, and you need to actually let go of this, like you're this skier mid-stance position where you're leaning less, your knee is not going to be as bent, and your legs are going to feel much more like they just do a scissoring action. With a feeling that almost evenly the front leg is moving forward and the back leg is moving back. Of course, it doesn't actually move back because because you're on solid ground, nothing moves backwards. It's just some things don't move forward. So, but you feel like your legs are working like this instead of like this and like this and like this, right? And you want to find a groove and a baseline level of tension that keeps it feeling really sort of light and elastic. So you're not going to try and have the same stride rate as if you were running faster. It will come down, and and you just go for that more upright, lower legs, even kind of. This is actually harder to demonstrate in my living room than a stag leap, paradoxically, but I don't know if that was at all useful, that little demo. So yeah, scissoring action. Those are the keys to making sure that you're not trying to take a gazelle gait out on your slow runs with you. All right. And I have actually a lesson that's really great for helping you get that feeling in your body of a glider gait, of the scissoring action of the legs. And it's called Mobilizing Your Core to Run. And I will put the link to that in the description below after we're done here. So if you're trying to master slow runs, give that a try. And I think that you'll find that is super helpful. So Adelino, says, my MAF pace in this moment is 9:10 or 9:20 mile on the road, not on the track. With this pace, it's difficult to be a gazelle. Do you agree? Yes, exactly. As always, 174, 176 strides per minute average. Audrey Lynch says, the back leg staying bent on push-off. The thing to remember about your push-off is it doesn't happen at the end. It doesn't really happen just before your foot leaves the ground. The push that pushes you off the ground and into the air and forward happens through late stance and not at the bitter end, because by the time you're here, like you're on the ball of your foot and there's not that much pushing left that can be done. So the pushing happened from here to here. And, this last bit, you're already finished. So you don't really want a ramrod straight leg at that moment, because really you want to be preparing to be able to easily bring it forward. So, but honestly, I would let go of that question, because you don't want to be thinking about pushing off at that point. If you're having trouble having enough hip extension for the speed that you're running, your leg will be really bent sort of just before it comes off the ground. Like it won't get close to straight through late stance. You won't probably even really know that unless you see video. That's one of those things. I would take it if I were looking at a runner, as I do all the time. I'm looking at running videos, or I'm looking at people physically running. That's one of those things that's an indicator that I would notice it as an outside eye, and it would be an indicator to me of issues with being able to get enough forward lean, get enough anterior pelvic tilt for the given speed, and being able to get the pelvis moving laterally and getting the hips to extend appropriately. And I know that's something that we need to work on, but I would probably also be seeing those things other ways. And I wouldn't, as a runner experiencing your running from the inside, I wouldn't stress about that. You'd have plenty of other indicators that your hips are not extending enough that would be much easier to perceive. For instance, chronic quad soreness, or like having your quads be the thing that gets sore when something gets sore, your quads and or your hip flexors. Calf stress, yeah, low back stiffness even. So hopefully that's helpful. Oh, you're welcome. Good. I should look for answers sooner, then I could just not keep on talking. All right, so that's the questions I've got here. So definitely go down, get mobilizing your core to run, give that a try. Yeah, if you found this, my brain's slow today. If you found this video helpful, please hit like so that YouTube knows to share it with other runners. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do that. And if you haven't checked out all the great stuff I've got for you, including approximately 1 million blog posts on balancedrunner.com, please do go take a look. Thank you very much for watching, and I will be back here tomorrow for another Stuck at Home Running Tip. Take care.